Welcome back to the Response Drivers Podcast, where we feature top marketing minds and dig into their inspiring stories. Learn how these leaders think and find big ideas to push your results and sales to the next level. Now, let's get started.
Hey, I'm Rick Rapé, host of the Response Drivers Podcast. Here I dive deep with marketing experts and innovators to learn how they approach targeted marketing and use data-driven strategies to acquire and retain customers. We'll talk about what's working, what's changing, and how we can stay ahead in an evolving marketing landscape. Response Drivers is brought to you by RPM Direct. RPM helps marketers turn direct mail into a measurable customer acquisition channel without having to build the internal team, vendor network, or production infrastructure themselves. Built on more than 30 years of constant testing, RPM helps you launch faster, optimize performance, and drive more sales from your direct mail. Visit rpmdm.com to learn more. Well, today on Response Drivers, I'm excited to welcome Bill Fritsch. Bill has had a remarkable 50-year career in marketing, advertising, entrepreneurship, and leadership. His journey includes what he calls his graduate school years at Disney headquarters, helping to grow a small ad agency into a major firm, starting his own agency and ultimately selling it to a large multinational company, taking a .com public, building a brand advertising agency, and later serving as a turnaround CEO for one of the most creative agencies in the world. Today, Bill mentors young business leaders, sharing his experience and perspective that can only come from a career spent building companies, leading creative teams, and navigating major moments of change in the marketing world. On a personal note, Bill had an impact on me very early in my own career. Back in 1991, when I was 20 years old, I interned at Christensen and Fritsch, and it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun, met wonderful people, and came away even more excited about where a career in marketing might take me. So it's a real pleasure to reconnect with you all these years later and to get to interview you, Bill. Thanks for joining.
Likewise, Rick. Likewise.
Well, let's go back and explore your early beginnings, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how you got started in marketing, how you ended up at Disney. I think Disney was maybe your first marketing type position, right?
It was. It was. So we have about 4 hours, and I'll tell the whole story.
We could go as long as you want to go, but maybe.
I'll try and give you the digest.
Sure.
And so I graduated from college in 1973 with a bachelor's in accounting. Now, why I studied accounting, only God knows. I certainly didn't know why. I give talks to students and graduating seniors from universities now, and I didn't have the foggiest idea. And a counselor talked me out of wanting to be a writer and into wanting to be an accountant. So I studied accounting, and I had to stick with it because his Uncle Sam had a rifle with my name on it and a little draft number for the draft, and Vietnam on the other side of the rifle, etched into it.
Yeah.
And I was very dead set against that war in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So I stuck with accounting, and I should have known. I had A's in everything in college except my major. But I graduated a year before I got out of school. I had a job that paid a tremendous amount of money waiting for me with one of the big 8 firms. And literally 12 months before, they all courted me, and I don't know why. But I was really set, and I was set financially. Coming out of college, I was very poor. But it took me about, maybe 2 weeks working for this firm to realize I don't belong here. This is not me at all. I can't do this for a living because I've always had this mind that looks out into the future and kind of maps things to that. I have a conceptual mind, not a rigorous mind that follows paths, but something that assembles pictures. I have this creativity that's kind of built in. So I was really stuck. I was literally doing something I just hated. And so about a year into that, we had a client of this firm, there was a giant printing concern. They had 16 printing plants up and down the eastern seaboard of the US. And I thought, oh, they're a printing company. I knew the controller there, and he hit me up whether I wanted a job with them. And I thought, oh, maybe I can switch into marketing, printing marketing. Kind of goes together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going to work for this firm in Uniontown, Ohio. I went to the University of Akron in Akron, Ohio, and was there literally less than 4 weeks because I was asked to, and I won't go into the story right now, but I was asked to help the president of the company steal a tremendous amount of money from the company and from the minority shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
And my boss, who I went to when I was approached about this, I went to him and said, "What's going on? The president wants me to cut this $365,000 check, and I've done this investigation, and it's for paper, but there's no paper. This is purely a fictitious transaction. He's just creating an invoice so he can skim money off the top of the company." Anyway, my boss said, "You're not responsible. Just do what he says. If you need to quit, just go, if you can't do this kind of work." I said, "What are you talking about?" So anyway, he said, "Look, just do what he says." And I said, "Why? I mean, I have to get evidence and turn him in." And he said, "He's in the mafia,
Oh boy.
and you're going to end up in a ditch." So I was
Oh gosh.
confronted at age 21 with this uh, conundrum, which is, do I help him do illegal things or not? Well, I'm just not made that way. But I called my dad. I said, "Dad, can we have dinner?" Because my dad, he'd fought in World War II, straight as an arrow human being. And
Mm.
he'd been shot by a German sniper, and he wasn't afraid of anything. And went to dinner and said, "Dad, this guy wants me to help him steal all this money." And my dad said, "So what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm can't do that. So I think I'll rifle his office and get evidence and turn him in." My dad said, "Yeah, that's what I expected you." I said, "One little detail, Dad, I could end up in a ditch." And my dad said, "So."
Mm.
That was my dad. He said, "If you
Whoa.
cross that line and you do this, you're never coming back across the line. You won't have a life worth living. So you
Mm.
might as well deal with this right now." So I
Wow.
did. I went back to the office. I gathered all these papers out of the guy's office and I copied them. The next day, I went to the auditors. I turned it over to them, and I was never showed up at the company again.
Oh
And I didn't
wow.
get shot. But that was like life's first lesson. And you were asking how I got into marketing. Well, the auditors were so thankful for all that evidence
Mm.
that they introduced me to this company called the Smithers Company, and I went to work for them as an accountant. But I immediately transitioned into this marketing think tank.
Mm.
And they brought in this guy from Walt Disney, a guy named Mike Vance, who was a motivational speaker of the day. He had worked with Walt in building a concept called the University of Disneyland to teach Disney values to every Disneyland employee. Anyway, he came in one day of hearing this guy talk. It's like, I just couldn't get out of my head. I've got to go work for Disney. So next thing you
Wow.
know, my wife, I'm sending them resumes. I don't even get a response from them. It's like, what? I'm taking my time to do this. Clearly, they need to at least say, "Go away, kid." I know the answer. I need to move out to California. And once they meet me, I'll get a job.
Wow.
So with $1,000 in the bank, my sweetheart and myself, uh, we've been married about 3 years. We're still married.
That's
We've been
great.
55 years now. And
Wow.
off you go. I'm sitting on Disney's step in Burbank, California, 500 South Buena Vista Street. Hey, I showed up. Get out of
Wow.
here, kid. We don't want an accountant who wants to learn how to be a creative guy. Go away. Besides, you should have done your research. We have a hiring freeze. This is 1976, the first oil problems in the world. Long lines for oil, and companies, inflation was starting to do this. And so they'd had a hiring freeze. So I'm stuck. Well, I show up every day for the next 2 months, every day at the studio in Burbank. Now, our $800 is getting mighty thin, and I don't have a job. And so finally, I convinced them. I said, look, why don't we do this? Give me the worst job you can find me at Disneyland as an hourly employee. So I became, and you'll get rid of me. And so I became a seasonal employee working about 15 hours, casual employee is what they called it, working 15 hours a week. And I started July 2, 1976 on the hardest ride in Disneyland, these buckets that came across the sky. I had to stop these 2,000-pound things, let people out
Mm.
and get them going again. Thought I was going to die. So I
Wow.
did that for 6 weeks. And every day I was in contact with the studio calling again. And they're like, we thought we got rid of you. He said, I know, but I'm gonna work for you guys, period. Anyway, ultimately, the end of that summer, and I'm making this too long of a story, Rick, I apologize, but at the end of
It's
that
okay.
summer, I was there 6 weeks. In a normal year, they would take 100 of the seasonal employees and give them full-time jobs at the park.
Mm.
That year, they made one offer for a full-time job at the park. And that was to me out of 6,000. And
Wow.
that's a whole other story I'm writing an article about right now, how that happened. And I turned them down. And the reason is I got a job offer from the studio the very same day. And I became marketing assistant for the Walt Disney Educational Media Company. And
Mm.
that was 8 different Disney businesses that took films and made educational things out of them and home movies and stuff like that. Ultimately, it became the division that grew into this gargantuan thing. And we built the Disney Channel. We built Disney's home video enterprise. And
Mm.
uh, and I learned how to be on a team of 5 that turned into thousands. And
Wow.
so I learned all about marketing, direct marketing. The educational media company was all direct mail. And so I became an
Mm.
early user and creator of direct marketing. And I learned some things about it. And I developed this attitude that it isn't necessarily the thing that responds best. There's an extra measure in all these things. And this led to
Mm.
Christians and Fritsch years later, 12 years
Mm.
later. And that
Mm-hmm.
was um, there's also the residual effect of what does it do to your brand? And at Disney, we were concerned about both. So we didn't always
Yeah,
use the thing that got the greatest response. We used the thing that got the best response along with the best brand values that came out.
sure.
And
Yeah.
that became a really unique idea. And when we created Christians and Fritsch in 1988, um, our idea was we're branded direct response, completely unique entity in the United States in
Interesting.
our focus.
Yeah.
But that all came out of those Disney days. So that's how I got into marketing.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, it's interesting. And I think a key takeaway from that story for me is, you know, you really had to take some big risks and struggle to find your first job in at Disney where you wanted to work. And you really had to persist and go through a lot of hardship to find and land that job. And I think, my kids are in their 20s at this point, and they use Indeed and they fire off resumes, and they sort of wait for things to happen. And it's like I know myself, and obviously from your story, um, finding that first job was not easy, and you had to be creative and persistent, and sometimes a little crazy to get your foot in the right door.
Well, I had two motivators. One is when I was sitting back in Ohio, my grandfather had my grandpa Crawford, my mom's dad, who I just
Mm.
loved.
Hmm.
And he had cancer and he was dying of cancer. I kept thinking he's going to get better, and I go to visit him in the hospital one day, and he's literally just half his normal size, just hunched over. And I said, "Oh, come on, Grandpa, perk up. When you get out of here, we're going to do all the stuff together." And he said, "Shut up and listen to me." He said, "I'm not leaving here. These are my last moments on earth." He died
Mm.
2 days later,
Wow.
and he said, "I'm sitting here," and He was probably 74 years old at the time. And he
Mm.
said, I could see the entire road that got me here and all the twists and turns. But for me, looking back, it's one long road.
Mm.
From your vantage point, you're going up that road and you're going to see branches in that road. And you're going to have to make decisions. And he said, I'm sitting here, I can see three of those branches, and I'm sitting on my deathbed, and I wish to God I'd taken any of those three.
Mm.
He said, so when you hit that branch in that road, you put yourself in this situation I'm in right now. And then answer the question. He said, follow your heart, not your head. Don't follow the
Yeah.
money, follow the thing that brings you some form of happiness.
Right.
Oh my God, that was like a thunderbolt because I was so miserable as an accountant. And then
Mm.
when I hear this guy Mike Vance talking about Disney, and of course Walt was my hero as a boy, all of a
Mm.
sudden that was like, I got to do it, right? Because I can imagine myself at my deathbed. I still do this, right
Mm.
now I'm at one of those branches, trying to
Mm.
decide what focus do I have for the next 30 years, right?
Mm.
Or the next 20 years or 10, however long I got in this earth. So that was one motivator. The other one was once I decided I'm going to go do this, I'm my nickname is a boy with loud mouth because I talk
Really?
all the time. And you never noticed that about me, I'm sure, Rick. It's
I don't
hard to talk
remember.
when
I
you.
don't remember you talking about all the time. No, but
Well,
that's
I like
great.
to talk. So I told everybody I knew I'm going to go work for Walt Disney and at a big family gathering. My Aunt Pat hears me saying she's across the room, 50 people in here, and saying, hey, I'm going to go work for Walt Disney. And I hear her voice across the room yell out, you got a job at Walt Disney? In those days, Disney was considered the most creative firm on earth. And,
Absolutely.
and I
Yeah.
said, no, I don't, but I'm going to go get one. And she says, and this was the best motivator I've ever had in my life. She said, they can hire anybody on earth. Why in God's name would they hire you? Well, when I went to California, there was no way I was going to give up on that quest. No
Right.
way at all I could give up on it because I wasn't going back to Ohio and
Yeah.
facing my Aunt Pat with failure because that's what
Yeah.
she. And I give these talks at universities and young people, and it really is around this idea of you have to get those voices out of your head, right? You
Yeah.
have to find your own path. And I combine that idea of don't do the thing that necessarily gives you a lot of money. Do the thing that makes your heart beat faster, that makes you enthused and excited and feel valued, even if it's for a chapter, because we few of us know what we're going to be 30
Yeah.
up. But we can see it just ahead in these chapters of life and find the next one. Well, when I went to work for Disney, I literally earned one quarter of what I earned at the accounting company. And we were so poor for the years I worked at Disney. Even though I moved
Mm.
up the ladder there, they because they were Disney, they just didn't have to pay people much.
Yeah. I think as you're telling that story, the thing that strikes me is that, you're not afraid of making these big bold moves, and you're not afraid of moving away from the safety of accounting. So you really had an interesting way of overcoming fear back then, and you were more afraid of the long-term regret of having not taken the path that you're talking about, the more risky path, which I think is a good way to look at things. Yeah, we all have these choices between safety and money and what we're really truly excited about, and it's hard to sometimes overcome the fear involved, for sure.
Boy, that is, if there's any gold vein going through my life, it's that issue, which is um, don't be afraid. People get business wrong. They think, oh my goodness, I can't make mistakes. Young people coming out of college,
Right.
oh my gosh, I can't make a mistake. They go into these jobs so nervous. It's like, are
Mm.
you kidding? You're going to make a ton of mistakes. You don't
Right.
know anything yet. You've not
Right.
really experienced all the ups and downs and trials and tribulations and the things you'll face. So make
Yeah.
them, enjoy them, but learn from them. Don't make the same
Yeah.
mistake twice. And you'll find you make less and less and less over time and lose the fear. But the other
Yeah.
big fear is I'm told to do something that I'm not comfortable with. And we
Yeah.
have an epidemic of that going on right now, Rick. Just an
Yeah.
epidemic of cowards, people who are, oh, I might get hurt if I don't do what the boss asks of me.
Well,
It's like,
it seems to be easier and easier to sort of get everyone else's opinion on what you're doing or what you're and to pay
bingo.
attention to everyone else's opinion. And really a lot of that stuff is just waste. You don't need to think about it or give it any time or any thought. It really doesn't matter. What matters is maybe more what excites you and where you want to go long term. Um, but I also like the fact that you were in your career, and I mean, going to Disney being the first big, bold move that you made, you were not afraid of big, bold moves.
No, and
Right?
I made some real mistakes along the way because of that. At
Yeah.
age 55, I went belly up in 2008, and I had a
Really?
negative net worth
Oh my
at age
gosh.
55. And well, I
Wow.
started a firm called Hydrogen, which is still an ad agency in Seattle. And
Hmm.
I started that in 2001, and with a premise that I didn't want a boutique ad agency. I wanted a brand center, but I wanted to buy digital shops all across the United States, but bring branding to the work they're doing. And
Ah.
I thought that would be a very smart move. Well, I brought in creative partners. I gave them minority shares in the business at the time,
Mm,
and but I gave them equal votes on the board of directors because I'd worked
mm,
with Rick and Tom for years, and I figured, here's my plan, here's where we're going. Well, it just didn't turn out the way that I had hoped because I
mm,
didn't want to be a 30-person boutique agency. I
mm.
wanted to have 40 offices across the United States and and
Wow.
and and because that's really exciting. It's fun to build. But Rick and Tom, first time in their lives where they owned something, and they just really wanted, or we the final just thing and straw for me was they wanted to, we will never let any work go out of this firm that we don't personally supervise, right? Which means you're going to be a 30-person firm.
Mm,
Fine. If that's your vision for life, knock yourself out, enjoy every day,
mm,
have control over that thing, and that's their joy. The problem was for me, this isn't working for me at all because
mm,
I put a lot of money into this thing. And
mm.
so anyway, I ended up leaving my own firm. And Rick
Wow.
and Tom took it over and they did a great job with it. Hydrogen is doing great work today, and Mary Knight now is running it. And I think they're a really strong, good brand advertising agency. But they're still a boutique, right?
Yeah.
And so it just wasn't my path. Well, I
Wow.
started another one going right into the jaws of 2008. And you may remember that's the financial crisis was.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the advertising business, I was so arrogant. I'd taken my literally a lot of money, put it into capital, and brought in two other people's money into capital. We started a new firm. We hired 12 very senior people
Wow.
and no clients. So talk about bold moves. So sometimes it works for you, sometimes it doesn't. But we went out, we immediately won major contracts with firms like Microsoft and a whole bunch of technology companies. And they all proceeded to spend exactly zero because all advertising budgets just got cut in the moment because they needed to prop up their profits and they were cutting
Sure.
everything they could. So all of a sudden, we've spent all this capital. And one of the fellows who put capital in was a fellow named Jack Belusic. He built Food Cone Building West, and he took it from 85 people to 850 people in about 5 years. And he was a very famous person in the advertising industry, and he bought Christensen at Fritsch.
Oh, wow.
Well, after that, he and I became friends, and so he put capital into this thing. but I shook his hand and I said, Jack, um, I don't know if we'll make a lot of money, but I guarantee you, you'll never lose any. No, there was no contract that said that. But
Mm,
when all the capital went away, um, I cleaned. I found a way for Jack to get all his money back, but it required me cleaning out my life insurance, my
mm,
whole life insurance,
wow.
cash value, and my 401k. I cleaned everything out.
Wow.
So I ended up, but Jack ended up getting through this deal, got all his money back.
That's
That's
amazing.
the value of a promise, right? Which is your word. This is the other thing we talk to students, or I talk to students about, which is you. I value myself so highly that when I give my word, I honor it, whatever it
Mm,
takes, right?
hmm.
And that's aided me so much in my life because I believe most people think when they deal with me, you
Mm.
get what you see. When I say something will be so, it'll be so. And I have a
Yeah.
long reputation behind that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was me at age 55. And I was up a creek without a paddle because of
Wow.
this tendency to really risk it. Oh, well, didn't bother me, bothered my wife.
Well,
But
you've
5 years
had so
later, I was better off than ever before
yeah.
because we got smart.
You've had some risky situations that didn't pan out, but you've had a lot of others that did pan out. So the I mean, I know you've had a lot of other successes in your career. But that is an interesting and compelling story. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's very, very interesting. One of the things that struck me about your story and just knowing your history a little bit, um, I know that you've had a lot of business partners over the years. You've always gone into partnerships with people, and you've always brought in a lot of other really intelligent and smart people. Um, I think that's interesting. I think one of the things I remember when I was an intern at Christensen and Fritsch is I asked you and Ron to go to lunch with me, and I interviewed you over lunch. And I asked you, what do I need to know if I want to own my own agency someday? What do I need to do? How do I, what? And you guys shared some great wisdom with me back then, 30 years ago. And one of the things you shared was like, don't be afraid to hire people that are smarter than you.
Oh my goodness.
And I see that
Yeah.
you've done that. You've partnered with a lot of interesting and great people to start things and to create things. And talk a little bit about how you think about partnership and why that's important.
Huh. I have this picture here. I'm going to show it to you if I could. This is Ron and me when we started Christensen and Fritsch. Can you see
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? And what we used to say, we had a huge version of this on a wall in one of our offices, and it was, you know, he doesn't write and I don't draw, right? And yet we're forming an advertising agency, right? We
Yeah.
better hire people who know what they're doing.
Mm,
And so we used to remind ourselves all the time, we'll never get this ego that says, I'm it. You listen to
mm,
me. I've always had the attitude that I love smart people. I love smart people who are also of good character and outgoing personalities, right? There are a
mhm,
lot of smart people who are just nasty to work with, right?
mm,
Well, just people in general who are nasty. Um, I love people who they they look forward and they solve problems. And if you surround yourself with people like that, um, you prosper in general.
mm,
So
mm,
take Christensen and Fritsch. It started as Christensen and Fritsch,
mhm,
and it was Ron and me. We each owned half of that company, and whoa, I own 50% of this thing. Well, along comes uh, along comes David Giersdorf as one of our clients. And David, well, he was president of Windstar Cruises that had just been
mhm,
acquired by Holland America. And so he hired us. We became Windstar's, direct marketing agency. We used to call it customer communications more than direct marketing. And it really went well. And one day David called and says, "Hey, I quit my job." He just, and I said, "Let's have coffee." And the very next day, we sat down with him and on a napkin, we worked it out. Said, "Okay, David, want to hire you." And I hope he doesn't yell at me for revealing this, but Ron and I took our salaries to zero. So we paid David, I believe it was $110,000 a year, which in
Wow.
those days was a lot of money.
Yeah,
Back in
that was
1989, it
yeah.
was a lot of dough. And so we took zero. So we bring in David. Well, David had been in the cruise industry forever. And my premise of how you build a business isn't you just get clients and they come and they go. Bring in people who have a business mind for the industry of the client and then back that person up with tremendous creative firepower. So David had been president of Windstar Cruises. Wow, this is really cool. David, come join us. We'll give you 10% of the company. And ultimately, we gave him more than that.
Mm,
Won't reveal how much. Um,
hmm.
and that was, and let's go get a cruise line. It took us 1 year, and we paid David that salary, and then we landed Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, which got a capitalized billing of about $25 million a year. And we kept
Wow.
that through the entire duration of Christensen and Fritsch, and then it became Christensen, Fritsch, Giersdorf, then U.S. Bank, right? Cynthia Grant, and then Tom Sperry. So CF, two G's and an S became.
Hmm.
Each of them, we gave major stake in the business. Now, I can't tell you, Rick, whether I gave money to them or I gained money from that. I can't tell you. All I know is in 4.5 years of building that company, we were approached by many to buy us, and we ended up selling to Foot Cone at Belding because I love Jack Belusic. Still do. He's a
Hmm.
close personal friend, greatest leader
Hmm.
I've ever known.
Hmm.
And so I absolutely have an attitude, and when I counsel creative firms, it's like don't be afraid to give up ownership if in doing it the business prospers, right?
Yeah.
It's all I cared about is my stock growing in value, and it grew in value. And it grew in value through a lot of people's efforts, not just my own.
Yeah. So you
And
were thinking, let me ask you, I'm going to ask you to unpack this because this is super
okay,
interesting to me. You're at the time, were you thinking about an exit and the value of the business
yes,
on the exit? You had the intention of sort of selling the
no.
business eventually?
Well, see, yes, when we started, day one, Ron and I said, this will be a 10-year chapter for us.
Okay. So you
And
had
by
a
the end of that,
timeline in
the company
mind.
will have grown and will have sold. And the premise of growing it is we will not work with any clients. If we're going to gain a client, we're going to keep it forever. We will not churn clients. So we'd rather have 5 clients in 5 industries, big clients, than
Mm-hmm.
50 clients. I'd work for a small ad agency before I started this, than have
Mm-hmm.
50 clients that are always churning, right?
Right.
Because then you're spending half your time pitching the next thing. We said,
Mm-hmm.
rather, we're going to go after only big ones, and we'll do projects for anybody if they've got big budgets that if they like us, they could grow. So we'll do
Mm-hmm.
projects for anybody. But if we don't like working with them, and in the 10 years of business that I was at Christensen Fritsch or CF2GS,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we only lost one client.
Wow.
That was US Bank. And that wasn't because of us. They got bought out by a bank back east that changed its name to US Bank. And that was
Sure.
year 9 in our journey. We
Wow.
fired clients. We would do
Mm-hmm.
work with them. And if it was just hard working with them, they didn't have an affinity for us. We didn't have them. We said, thanks, no, we don't want any more projects. But the
Mm-hmm.
ones we gained, then I hired a business head for that unit. And like
Mm-hmm.
David Gersdorf built his own team there. And we had the creative organization was run ultimately by Cynthia Hartwig and then Mary Knight. Um, and she would manage that whole thing, but creatives were assigned to these units. So David built his whole account team, and he had creatives assigned to it who had affinity for cruises and cruise lines.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in banking, same thing in technology, same thing in mobile services. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had five clients and I don't know, 150 million in capitalized billings, right? We ran about 30% pre-tax profit year in and year out.
That's
And
great.
that's not EBITDA, that's pre-tax profit because we would only pitch one or two things a year. And that
Yeah.
was in, and it was a great business model. And I'm working now with my daughter's company. It's called Newton Street.
Mm.
They started formally January 1st of 2024. So they're 2.5 years in business and they're following the same model. And they started when they formed the partnership between Amy and her partner Karen. Um,
Mm.
they they had a lot of project work, which they did away with. And they
Mm.
focused on what work they were doing for Gates Foundation. And now they serve many divisions of Gates under long-term contract, and they're just focusing. Like now they're
Yeah.
branching out to other areas of women's health. Now,
Yeah.
Amy worked at the Gates Foundation for 15 years. So and Karen ran women's health for the Gates Foundation. So they had a lot of experience. And
Mm.
so they have a world-class reputation, but they're focusing on clients they can gain and retain. And that's
Yeah.
that's my whole consulting model with firms. So how do you get off this churn and burn and get into deep service so the
Yeah.
clients don't go away, which is harder nowadays because of procurement than it used to
It,
be.
it is. And I'd say, luckily for my career, I don't know if I got that idea from you, but it's been my idea for my whole career too, to hang on to my clients and to
Yeah,
go deep and retain them for a very long period of time. So
absolutely.
that's been my the secret to RPM's success for 18 years is just to hold on to clients for a really long time. And we do that not through contracts, but we do it through service and results and being easy to work with and even fun to work with, right? So
Absolutely. No
we
contract
work
will prevent you from getting fired. It's just the way you behave and how you,
right.
it's not just the work you do and the quality of the work and whether it's performing. It also is your bedside manner in dealing with the
Yeah,
client.
right. Yeah, we
Yeah.
have a lot of fun with our clients. And honestly, I think that's the reason why I can still do this after 18 years is because I really enjoy my clients and we're friends and I like to serve. And I
It's
think
the way it
that's
should be,
super,
Rick.
super important. So,
It's the
um,
way it should be.
well, good Lord, we could talk for hours and hours, Bill. I have a feeling that, and I want to go deeper with you on some of your guiding principles that you learned along your career in marketing. I mean, when we started working together at Christensen and Fritsch, I was doing art boards and still pasting up art boards and running them to the airport.
And kids don't,
And
young people don't know what that is,
I
right?
know, and back then, direct mail was like high tech, I guess, or something.
It
And
used
then
data.
yeah, use data for targeting, and the targeting must have been super basic, right? But we've come a long way. I mean, you've gone through the whole evolution
Oh,
out of into digital marketing, and your career spanned a whole bunch of transitions, and you know, how did you navigate that, and maybe talk a little bit about how people might be navigating this big transition that we're facing now, which is this
yeah.
transition to AI, right?
Which is in many ways a real scary one. Uh,
Hmm.
there's positives and negatives to it. So, okay, how do I unpack this in a real
That's a big
tight
question,
way?
isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it is, but it is tied very much to, I would say number one, I look at the landscape of today and it is so radically different even before AI than it was when I started out. I had to go work for Walt Disney to be able to produce creative things and to do creative things. I couldn't sit at home and do that in those days. It was next to
Mm.
impossible, right?
Mm.
And and every step of the way, as things change, there are people who put their hands up and go, "Oh, it's the death of the industry," right? Evolution is the watchword, right? It's evolving so fast. And good side of AI is you can be a heck of a lot more productive fast if you know how to use it. If you use it to think for you, I just heard a Wharton study that came out a couple of weeks ago. I heard this on NPR that the people who instead of thinking through a problem, go to AI and say, "Here's my problem. What do I do?" They're losing intelligence. So they're mapping people's ability to think. Now, the people instead
Mm.
are saying, "Here's my thinking of where this thing should go," and are able to use AI to research, to challenge, to do things to it.
Mm.
It's extremely productive, with the caveat that it lies and it does make stuff up, and
Mm.
it'll take you down a path that is not necessarily the best thinking. AI is not creative. It can assemble data and it can tell you here's the best of a way to write something by today's standards. It cannot innovate. It can't
Mm.
create in a way that human mind can. So
Mm.
there's two things about the AI era. Number one, and the social media era. I'm watching young people sitting at home inventing businesses and becoming wealthy,
Mm.
sitting in their home computer.
Mm.
I don't know how to do that, right? I'm really curious. How do you, because I have these structured thinking things going on that are born out of 50 years and becoming an ancient human being here. Young people aren't encumbered. This is the world they're growing up in. So if you grow up in a world where you say, I can grab the pieces, I can innovate, and I can evolve fast, you're going to do great.
Mm.
If it is, I'm coming out of school, I've studied this, this is me, I'm an accountant. I really thought I have to go back to college to go to marketing if I want to switch to marketing. And so for me, it was either do I kill myself or go back to school? Those are my two choices.
Mm.
I didn't want to do my job. Okay, so young people coming out of school or early in their careers, if they think of what they can't do, they're not good. It's going to be hard. And
Mhm.
so there's several things that I share with people. And the number one thing is how to find your own voice inside you within this cacophony of people telling you what to do. And
Mm.
I was lucky. And by the way, a lot of people won't do that. And there's a lot of studies that say only a certain percentage of the population can think in that way. A lot of
Mm.
people think in the form of how can I be in the village and be accepted? I'm not
Mm.
plagued by that.
Mhm.
So number one is this idea you've got to be able to evolve. In order to do that, you've got to tame this thing in your head that says, this is a problem I can't solve. And I always ask this question, which is of myself, which is I hit a wall. I can give several examples of a client we had when I was back at Hydrogen Family Services. We have a media budget that they want to raise $10 million, working with Rotary to build a new building. Great big fundraiser. They got media budget. And we'll come back to show the creative work. Media budget, the board has decided they don't want to spend any. Oh,
Mm.
how do you solve that? There's no media budget. Well, it may be a future one of these things. I'll share the work that Tom Shearer and Rick Peterson came up with to solve that, and Martha Craig. And it's a beautiful campaign where we created our own media, and it was so successful. The news media covered it for a week and
Oh,
didn't
wow.
cost a dime. So there are always answers, and you have to ask yourself, okay, okay, the only problem here is I don't know how to solve it. Not that it can't be solved. Where most people say it can't be solved,
Right.
and you know it can be solved because other people have solved it. And the moment you
Mhm.
say that, which is my only problem is I don't know how.
Mhm.
Curiosity is now there, and and you go out and you look at how other people have solved similar things, and that
Right.
gets you going.
Yeah.
So one of these things is don't stop because you hit a wall, right? So tame those voices and let your own voice uh, dominate. And that takes progress, and that comes through early career experiences, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and so those are really important things.
It's an I think it's an innate personality thing too. Um,
It's innate. Although,
I'm I'm lucky I have that trait as well because I when I run into problems I'll write them down on a big piece of paper, put them up on my bulletin board, and I always try to I don't know how to solve this problem yet. I always add the word yet. And then I've experimented with this and what I've found is even if I don't try to figure out how to solve the problem, a solution will appear.
yeah, that's your unconscious at work,
I
right?
know. It's like
It's
subconscious is finding a way to like solve the problem. So, I mean, there's obviously problems where I
you
study and
just
get
you hit it.
curious and like but a lot of times it's just the fact that you're like you just ask for a solution and all of a sudden things will find their way a way to work themselves out sometimes. It's amazing.
Well, I want to give you a couple ideas around this to complete that equation. And what you just said is, I'm willing to accept it can be solved. But
Hmm.
but structured thinking that we're all taught is I've reached a wall and it
Hmm.
can't be solved. And then I get all this feedback from people saying, yeah, that can't be solved. Be
Hmm.
careful who you surround yourself with.
Hmm.
The, you asked about my penchant to reach out for talented people. I love people who know far more than I do. And
Yeah.
I don't recall in my entire career, once I was out of accounting, anybody sitting around the water cooler, we used to say in the old days, complaining, because we were always solving problems. And if you work
Hmm.
with a certain kind of person, they don't accept they can't be solved. And I have a whole
Right.
bunch of examples. Maybe we could do a thing on this if you're interested, just on that issue. Um,
Sure.
yeah, so we're going to tell two other ideas in this whole thing. One that we talked about, which is don't fear failure. People get this wrong. My point is, in business, failure is an inconvenience.
Yeah.
Your loved one getting cancer and you can't do anything about it is a problem. But
Hmm.
you can go bankrupt, or you can be. I don't believe in going bankrupt, but I was insolvent. Uh,
Hmm.
but I solved it. And
Hmm.
within a few years, I was worth more than ever before because of the knowledge that I've gained. And because for me, okay, it's just a problem to be solved. So in business, don't fear failure. And I
Yeah.
always ask this question, when is taking a risk the least risky thing you can do?
Mm.
Because so many times we fail because we're afraid we might get criticized for making a bold move.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the only people who move up in good organizations are those who do make bold moves. And Walt Disney said, you
Right.
can only make big mistakes when you're trying big things. And
Hmm.
I just love that. So,
That's
one other point I want to make, this is
yeah.
the big transition, and that is early in my career, when I got to Disney, I was handed this assignment. We have all these educators down in Florida coming for a big conference, organize some kind of event at the Fontainebleau Hotel. Well, I was an accountant 3 months before. I'd never organized anything in my life. 800 educators gathering. Well, I ended up doing really well with it. We created a concept called Disney on Ice Cream because there was a thing going around the country at the time called Disney on Ice, and we threw a big ice cream social down for 800 teachers. Well, I did it so well, my to-do list was suddenly 45 things, and I got them all done. And then my list was 112 things. And if you're really good at what you do, your list is going to be really long. And then it's like if you're stuck in your thinking, my only out is collapse or quit. I was working weekends and nights, but my unconscious worked on it. And one night, bing, wait a minute. My job isn't to do it, it's to get it done. And those are two
Mm.
different concepts. And
Mm.
get it done. So I walked in the next day and I said, hey, these are ones where you want my talents on it because we can do it well. Now, the rest of these things, here's how we can do it. Because of that move, I moved up 3 levels in Disney inside 1 year because I became a leader. I became
Yeah.
somebody who thought about how do I harness people? How do I find really good people to do these things? And how do I sell that concept to a leadership that doesn't want to spend money?
Right.
So those are the
Yeah.
things. share with young people. And that's the big one.
You can get trapped. You can get trapped in a to-do list for sure.
And
I'm,
switch
I
to my
still,
job to get it done.
I'm still working on that myself, just
Well,
trying to
I
get
did too
myself
at times.
into what's the best use of my time and what do I need to say no to? What do I need to, what am I doing that someone else can be trained to do easily or, relatively easily? It's always a constant struggle for me also to let go of control and to
That's the big
do
one.
that kind of thing.
That's
So,
the big one. And
well, there's a certain amount of fear that you have to overcome to let go of things too, right? Like we keep coming back to this theme of like overcoming fear or moving past
absolutely.
fear. And it is true that that's the thing that seems to be fighting against us more in business than actual real dragons. We're
Yeah.
fighting against fear a little bit along the
Well, and
way.
now at my age, I just learned I've been through fire. I've had really a wonderful career, lots of success. Digital
Mhm.
Kitchen, my last chapter running something, was the most exciting by far, but the
Mm,
hardest.
mm,
Hardest because it was a culture that really had challenges within it. Three offices doing the world's best, arguably the world's best creative work. And to this day, the work that was done back then is still work that holds up all these years later. And
mm,
so I learned it's easier to build a culture than it is to shift a culture.
mm,
And so you just learn these things along the way. But that's the big lesson, which is once you tame the worry over doing the right thing and taking the bold move,
mhm,
uh, once you realize that you aren't in control and anyway, and doing the safe thing isn't the safe thing in many cases,
mm,
and the discernment between this is the time when we have to make this move, as
mhm.
opposed to I if I was into safety, I'd still be an accountant because I could have bought a house. I was making a fortune. I would have learned how to invest money. I'd be worth so much money. But I've never believed that money's what a career is about.
Well, it's about that, but it's also about like, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, you have
amazing
to make some money,
stories,
right?
amazing
Yeah,
stories and amazing people and amazing clients and,
exactly.
risks and rewards and risks and failures. I mean, it all goes in the soup, right? I think,
Well, that's the
uh,
book I'm writing right now, really, and that's coming out of these student talks uh,
yeah,
uh, to young people about what lessons I now know would I wish I'd known then,
yeah.
and that's kind of the sharing now and give back.
Well, gosh, Bill, I think this has been an amazing conversation, and I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours. Uh, and maybe we'll get a chance to talk more another time soon. But I think for
Thank you,
today,
Rick.
I'm gonna wrap it up. But uh, if people want to get a hold of you and they're interested in talking to you or learning more, what's the best way for them to reach you? Would that be LinkedIn or
Yeah, I think LinkedIn's the best.
okay?
It's really easy. Just
Yeah,
search Bill Fritsch. I have an easy email address, billfritsch@gmail.com. Although nobody knows how to
perfect.
spell Fritsch. So,
Well, they'll figure it out. I encourage people to go onto LinkedIn and read the articles that you're writing. I think it's great that you're passing on your knowledge and your wisdom to the next generation of business people out there. Hopefully, they'll pay attention.
well, it is fun. And so,
Yeah.
thank you, Rick.
That's a wrap for this episode of Response Drivers. Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's insights valuable, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you left a review. Got a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Just drop us a message at responsedrivers@rpmdm.com. Until next time, keep driving response and making your marketing work smarter.